Everybody knows that they have a soul, but do we really know what that means? What does it mean to have a soul? What is our soul? So today I would like to really get into the details of what that means, discussing, the breakdown. We know that a human being, his life exists because he has a soul, and we know that when that soul leaves the body, then so does the life of the person ends. And so we want to appreciate that a little bit. So again, we spoke in previously that there's different levels of the neshama. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama. Now the lowest level that we spoke about, nefesh, is the part of the soul that is directly connected with the physical aspect of the human being. And we also, one of the terms given for that soul is also a vital soul. It's the soul that's connected with the blood and the heart that pumps and the life of the person. Now, because the physical makeup of a person has good and bad in it, so we're going to discuss now the nefesh and the negative aspects that are part of it by its essence of being created in a world that's a mixture of good and bad. So there are 4 elements that are the root of a human body. There's earth, wind, fire, and water. These 4 elements make up the physical human body. And of course, these same 4 elements exist in a spiritual sense as well. And ultimately, the 4 elements that make up a human being are connected with the 4 letters from Hashem's name, Yud and the Hey and Vav and Hey. Now, the mystics explain, mainly Rav Chaim Vital, and this is of course all explained in the Sefer called Tanya in the first 2 chapters, very, very nicely written. For anyone that wants to look at an English version can look there. These 4 elements that really make up our nefesh bahamit, our vital soul, and also the physical body, have both negative and positive aspects to them. Let's begin to discuss a little bit. Fire, from the root of fire come the negative attributes of haughtiness and anger. From the root of earth come laziness and depression. From the root of water come the idea of pleasure seeking, to fulfill one's taivas. And from the root of wind, of ruach, comes the idea of speaking empty words, lashon hara and holalut, acting in a joking way, in an empty way, with any purpose. So these 4 elements are connected with these type of negative character traits. Now, it is one of the jobs of the Jewish people and it's talked about in all of the different books of Musar and Chassidut, everything is really focused on the idea of being, it's called Tikkun Hamidot, the fixing and the elevating of one's character traits. And it's the idea of character development. Now, so we have to work on each of these traits in order to purify them and elevate them, in order to bring them to a corrected state. Now, if we let ourselves go wild, like an animal in the field, so then unfortunately we will grow in the wrong direction. A person is born with a particular type of spiritual makeup. That means that the person is born with a certain level of tendency towards becoming angry, or a level of tendency towards pleasure seeking and haughtiness and pride and all of these types of negative characteristics. He's born with a certain type of combination of all of these desires within. And that's not his fault. That's, again, the result of being created, is having a mixture of this good and bad within us. Our job, of course, we have 2 roads in front of us. Our job is not to allow these things to roam free. It's like having an animal without a leash. If you give, the famous joke or statement is, how long of a leash does a dog need? And the answer is, however long it has. If you give it a longer leash, it will go to the end of that leash. And if you cut the leash shorter, it'll go to that end. And that is really a lesson that the animal within will go as far as you let it. And it's our job, the job of a human being that has intellect, to rule over the animal nature within. There's a teaching from the sages found in the Midrash that says that the righteous, when referring to the righteous, their heart is in their control. Whereas when discussing about the wicked, they explain that their heart is not in their control. Now we have to appreciate the depth of this idea. We're taught that the evil inclination, which is that driving force in us, pushing us in the wrong direction, where is his main seat in the body? It's in the heart. Now, the good soul, what we call the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination, its main seat is in the brain. Because God gave us wisdom, and specifically wisdom of Torah, to show us the right way. And with that knowledge, the mind is supposed to control the heart. And when the mind is on top, the way we stand, that's another lesson. An animal, well, we stand upright, the head above the heart. Whereas an animal lays this way, where the heart and head are on the same level. Because an animal doesn't have intellect with which to control its heart. An animal is all instinct, instinctual. It's all just the way it was programmed. Now, our job as human beings in the world is to use the koach of our mind, knowing and learning what's right, what's wrong, and to control and direct and even force the heart to subdue itself and to accept the proper way. Even if it really wants inside other things, it has to know how to control them or curb that desire. For example, there's a desire for intimacy. Certainly, that's the way we were created. But a proper outlet is to get married and have children and raise a family. A person wants to be in charge of something. He wants to be in control. So he can be a dictator in his work environment, or he can be a team player. We have to take our inner makeup and direct it in the best way possible. There's a Gemara that talks about a particular person that has a thirst for blood. So what should he do? Should he chas v'shalom hurt people? No. Let him become a butcher, or shecht animals, or be a moel, where he's dealing with doing something that's productive, but which fits his spiritual makeup. So again, getting into the depth of what the heart being in control or out of control is the idea of giving that, so to speak, that dog, the animal within us, an unlimited leash, or trying to tame it and direct it. And that is our job, and that is essentially what Tikkun HaMidot is really all about. When we are hit with this idea, so the natural reaction might be one of two things. Person is inspired and says, I want to be a tzaddik. Or a person might see himself so far away from that ideal and say, it's hopeless for me, I give up. And you know what? Either of those two reactions are unfortunately misleading and wrong. If a person wants to be an instant tzaddik, he wants to be like Moshe Rabbeinu tomorrow, so he will eventually realize that that's not possible, and he might give up. And of course, a person that says, I'm so far away from this goal, so I'm not even going to try, is also foolish. And unfortunately, both of those two failures are rooted in a negative trait, and that is the idea of haughtiness. A person wants to be so great, and he can't accept the fact that he's not great. Now, we have to know that God made us who we are, and that we have to accept. This is mentioned in a verse from Eov, brought in the Tanya in the beginning there. It says that God created righteous and God created wicked. Now, the Gemara that's being quoted asks right away, what do you mean God created righteous and wicked? We have free choice. It's not decided whether we will or will not be wicked or righteous. We can choose. We can be righteous and not wicked. So what is the meaning of a statement that God created righteous and wicked? And so the answer is that God created people with different internal makeups, which give them that predisposed, nature. Some people are born with a stronger desire to be wicked, and others are born with a stronger desire to be righteous. There's a famous story with one of the Hasidim coming to his Rabbi and saying, Rabbi, what should I do? Life is very difficult. I come to the Beis Medrash to try to sit down and learn Torah, which is of course one of the greatest mitzvot. And I have like ants in my pants. I can't sit down. I can't sit for more than 5-10 minutes without having a strong urge to get up. I have to get up and have a cigarette, get up and have a cup of coffee. I can't sit down and learn. So that is, of course, a very great struggle. What does the Rebbe answer him? The Rebbe answers him a fascinating answer. He says like this. He looks at him and says, what should I do? What do you want me to do? That all I want to do is sit and learn. And in that answer, we're shown a little bit of a deep appreciation of what the struggle of man is all about. The Rebbe was telling him that I was created without such a desire. But at the same time, I don't have the opportunity to fight with it and to beat it. You that have this strong desire have this battle to fight. But when you will win that battle, you will accomplish far more than I could ever accomplish. Because, changing oneself, Transforming oneself is the greatest accomplishment that that is ever talked about. And that is the ultimate goal of the Jewish person. It would be foolish to think that God is expecting everyone to be righteous. Because if that's what he's expecting, then let me tell you, God's very disappointed. Because we're not all tzaddikim. 1 in a million are tzaddikim, and the rest are regular. And unfortunately, included within Am Yisrael is people that are wicked. The idea is not to be upset and reject our shortcomings, but to accept who and what we really are and work to better ourselves. Interesting analogy we can appreciate when we talk about climbing a mountain. The only way to climb up that mountain from one level to the next level is by digging deep into the level you're in. If you don't have a firm grip on where you are, you can't climb higher, you'll fall. And that's the same idea with spiritual growth. We have to understand who and what we really are and not fool ourselves. And if we have shortcomings and if we have flaws, we have to, on the one hand, embrace them, but realize that we have to work on them and improve little by little. And if we're discouraged because we're not perfect, so then, of course, that is absolutely self-destructive. So let us appreciate that God made us all the way he made us. As a matter of fact, this is hinted to or overtly mentioned in the very beginning of the Chumash. When Cain and Hevel bring their offerings, so the offering of Hevel is accepted because he did it more wholeheartedly, and Cain's offering was rejected. And Hashem says to Cain, don't be depressed. Don't give up. I made you this way. Your job is to improve yourself. It's not your fault that you were created with the inner makeup you have, which can lean in the wrong direction. It's your fault if you give up and allow sin to overcome you and bring you to depression and you lose the game. But if you accept who and what you are, because I made you that way, and work on improvement, then in the improvement is the essence of who you really are. It's not what level you start on, but what level you complete on. And that's our job. And in that sense, nobody could look at someone else and judge them and say, who are you? How dare you act this way or behave this way? We're taught about the most righteous and humble of all the tzaddikim, Moshe Rabbeinu. He would look at every single person in Klal Yisrael and even every single person created by God and think that that person is possibly better than him. And that's how he was so humble, because it works two ways. If God would have given that person what he gave me, perhaps he would have done better with that. And the reverse. If God would give in me what he gave him, meaning his troubles and his struggles, then I might not have done as good a job as him. So theoretically, that person that I'm looking at, which is on a much lower level than me, could be better than me. And this is the way to look at our fellow person, and really also to take that approach and look at ourselves that way. Because it's not a time, we don't live in a generation where we should be beating ourselves up so much. The same way that we're taught that positive reinforcement helps in educating and raising children, so too positive reinforcement is ultimately the greatest tool we can use to improve ourselves and improve the beauty and wholeness of our neshama. May we be successful in this godly avodah, this godly mission that we've been given, which all of the interactions that we come across in our life, it's not about interaction as much as how we will react and how we will grow from it. And that is really what we're here to do, to use life and its situations to help us grow. The Vilna Gaon says that in that moment of struggle, in that test where you're late and your car broke down and your wife is sitting there and she might say the wrong thing, or the reverse, the husband is approaching the wife with an attitude in the wrong moment and she wants to just scream, and we all want to scream sometimes. What do you do in that moment? If you can overcome that test, that's where you see who you really are, what you're really made of, and that's how you come to reach the ultimate growth that we're here to reach. May we be successful in fulfilling what we've come here to do.